Beyond token initiatives, co-creating neurodiverse work environments through HR-led participatory design abstract. This article examines the emerging field of neurodiversity-inclusive organizational design through a critical pragmatist and sociotechnical systems lens. The neuroinclusion movement, which recognizes cognitive differences as natural variations rather than deficits, has gained significant traction in organizational contexts over the past decade. Despite this progress, many organizational practices remain rooted in neuronormative assumptions that disadvantage neurodivergent individuals. This article synthesizes research on HR-led co-design approaches to neuroinclusion, examining prevalence data, organizational and individual impacts, evidence-based interventions, and future directions, by integrating perspectives from critical disability studies, organizational psychology, and sociotechnical systems theory. The article provides a comprehensive framework for HR practitioners seeking to transform neuronormative organizational cultures through authentic co-design with neurodivergent stakeholders. Approximately 15 to 20% of the global population is estimated to be neurodivergent, including individuals with autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyscalculia, dyspraxia, and other cognitive variations. Doyle and McDowell. 2022. Despite this significant prevalence, organizational structures, processes, and cultures remain overwhelmingly designed by and for neurotypical individuals. The resulting, neuronormative, workplace creates systematic barriers to the full inclusion, engagement, and advancement of neurodivergent talent. The business case for neuroinclusion has gained considerable attention in recent years, with organizations like Microsoft, SAP, and JP Morgan Chase implementing dedicated neurodiversity hiring programs, Austin and Pisano. 2017. However, these initiatives often remain siloed and fail to address deeper systemic issues. As Doyle and McDowell, 2022, note, many neurodiversity initiatives focus on getting neurodivergent people in the door without addressing the organizational structures that make it difficult for them to thrive once inside. This article argues that meaningful neuroinclusion requires more than specialized hiring programs or surface-level accommodations. Instead, it demands a fundamental reconsideration of how we design work environments, leveraging principles from sociotechnical systems theory and participatory design. By positioning HR professionals as facilitators of co-design processes that meaningfully involve neurodivergent stakeholders, organizations can move beyond compliance-oriented approaches toward truly inclusive cultures that harness diverse cognitive strengths. The neuroinclusion landscape defining neurodiversity and neuroinclusion in the workplace. The term, neurodiversity, was coined by Australian sociologist Judy Singer in the late 1990s to describe variations in neurological development as a natural and valuable form of human diversity rather than as deficits or disorders. Singer. 2017. This paradigm shift reframes conditions like autism, ADHD, and dyslexia as differences rather than deficiencies, emphasizing the unique strengths and perspectives that neurodivergent individuals bring to society. Neuroinclusion in the organizational context refers to the intentional design of systems, processes, and environments that accommodate and value diverse neurological functioning. As Doyle and McDowell, 2022, explain, neuroinclusion goes beyond compliance with legal accommodations to create organizational cultures and practices that recognize neurodivergence as a source of competitive advantage rather than a problem to be fixed. Co-design, or participatory design, emerged from Scandinavian workplace democracy movements in the 1970s, n. 2008, and involves end users as full participants in design processes. When applied to neuroinclusion initiatives, co-design emphasizes the principle of nothing about us without us, ensuring that neurodivergent individuals are active agents in creating the systems that affect their working lives. Prevalence drivers. and state of practice. The estimated 15 to 20% prevalence of neurodivergence in the general population is not reflected in organizational demographics, particularly at leadership levels. Research suggests that neurodivergent individuals face significantly higher unemployment rates than their neurotypical peers. For example, only 22% of autistic adults in the UK are in any form of employment, despite most expressing a desire to work. National Autistic Society. 2016. For those who do secure employment, career progression often stalls due to systemic barriers. Several factors have driven increased organizational attention to neuroinclusion over the past decade: talent competition, organizations facing skills shortages, particularly in STEM fields, have recognized neurodivergent talent pools as an untapped resource. Austin and Pisano. 2017. Legal compliance. Strengthened disability legislation in many jurisdictions has created compliance pressures. ESG commitments. Growing investor emphasis on social governance metrics has incentivized inclusive employment practices. Neurodiversity advocacy. Self-advocacy movements have increased public awareness and organizational accountability. Despite these drivers, current organizational practices vary widely. Most programs remain limited to specific roles or departments, often focused on technical positions, perpetuating stereotypes about neurodivergent capabilities. Kraminska et al. 2019. Organizational and individual consequences of neuroinclusion. Organizational performance impacts. The business case for neuroinclusion is increasingly well documented. Organizations with robust neuroinclusion practices report significant performance benefits, innovation advantages. Neurodivergent thinking styles often include pattern recognition abilities, lateral thinking, and hyperfocus that contribute to innovation outcomes. JP Morgan Chase reported that neurodivergent team members were 90 to 140% more productive than their peers and made fewer errors. Austin and Pisano. 2017. Problem-solving capacity. Cognitive diversity enhances collective intelligence and problem-solving capabilities. Research by Page, 2019, demonstrates that groups with diverse cognitive approaches consistently outperform homogeneous groups of higher individual ability on complex problems. Talent attraction and retention. Organizations known for inclusive cultures report lower turnover rates and greater success in recruiting technical talent. Anabai and Locke. 2019. Reduced legal and compliance risk. Proactive neuroinclusion reduces discrimination claims and associated costs. Enhanced organizational adaptability. Experience designing for neurodivergence develops organizational muscles for flexible work design that benefit broader adaptation capabilities. Individual well-being and stakeholder impacts for neurodivergent employees. Working in environments designed without consideration for their needs often takes a significant toll. Psychological impacts. Neurodivergent individuals working in neuronormative environments report higher rates of anxiety, depression, and burnout. Cooper et al. 2018 found that neurodivergent employees experienced higher rates of workplace stress than their neurotypical colleagues. Masking and authenticity. Many neurodivergent individuals engage in masking, suppressing natural behaviors to conform to social expectations, which is associated with increased stress, exhaustion, and mental health challenges. Hull et al. 2019. Career satisfaction and progression. Organizational barriers lead to underemployment relative to qualifications, with neurodivergent individuals often experiencing slower career progression despite equivalent or superior skills. Kraminska et al. 2019. Financial impacts. Employment disparities contribute to significant income gaps between neurodivergent and neurotypical individuals with equivalent qualifications. Doyle and McDowell. 2022. Importantly, evidence suggests that neuroinclusive practices benefit all employees. Research by Bernstein et al. 2020 found that accommodations initially developed for neurodivergent employees were often voluntarily adopted by neurotypical employees who found them helpful. Evidence-based organizational responses, participatory assessment, and environmental redesign rather than assuming what neurodivergent employees need. Leading organizations use structured participatory assessment processes to identify specific environmental barriers and opportunities. These assessments examine physical, social, and digital workspaces through a neurodiversity lens. SAP's Autism at Work program includes structured environmental assessments conducted with input from autistic employees. These assessments have led to modifications in office layouts, lighting, and acoustic properties that reduce sensory overload and improve productivity. Austin and Pisano. 2017. Effective approaches include collaborative workspace mapping. Cross-functional teams including neurodivergent employees map sensory and cognitive demands across different work environments. Day-in-the-life shadowing. Structured observation to identify friction points in typical workdays. Preference diversity documentation. Systematic documentation of varied preferences for communication. Collaboration and environmental conditions. Universal design workshops. Co-facilitated sessions to develop inclusive workspace solutions. Research by Bernstein et al. 2020 demonstrates that participatory environmental redesign benefits both neurodivergent and neurotypical employees by creating more flexible, comfortable workspaces that accommodate a broader range of working styles and preferences. Reimagining talent practices through co-design. Traditional recruitment, assessment, and performance management processes often inadvertently screen out or disadvantage neurodivergent talent. Leading organizations are redesigning these systems with neurodivergent input. SAP's Autism at Work program replaced conventional interviews with skills-based assessments developed in consultation with autism experts and autistic employees. These alternative assessments focus on job-relevant capabilities rather than social performance. The program has hired over 100 neurodivergent employees across 12 countries, with retention rates exceeding company averages. Austin and Pisano. 2017. Effective approaches include alternative interview formats, skills demonstrations, work samples, and job trials as replacements for traditional interviews. Strength-based assessments. Tools that identify unique capabilities rather than conformity to neurotypical norms. Clear expectation documentation. Explicit documentation of unwritten workplace rules and expectations. Flexible performance evaluation. Multiple channels for demonstrating competence beyond standard formats. Career pathing workshops. Structured processes for identifying nonlinear career development options. Research by Kraminska et al. 2019. Indicates that organizations using alternative assessment methods not only improve neurodivergent hiring outcomes but also identify high-potential candidates who might have been overlooked through traditional processes. Building neuroinclusive communication ecosystems. Communication systems, formal and informal, are often designed around neurotypical preferences, creating significant barriers for neurodivergent employees. Co-designed communication ecosystems recognize diverse preferences and provide multiple pathways for engagement. Effective approaches include communication preference documentation, structured systems for sharing and respecting diverse communication needs. Multi-channel messaging, providing information through multiple formats, written, verbal, visual, simultaneously. Meeting redesign. Co-designed meeting protocols that accommodate diverse processing styles. Asynchronous options. Expanding asynchronous work and communication opportunities. Technology enablement. Leveraging assistive technologies and accessibility features. Microsoft has implemented communication preference systems that allow employees to indicate their preferred communication modes and meeting structures. Research by Anabai and Locke, 2019. Demonstrates that formalizing communication preferences reduces cognitive load for neurodivergent employees while improving overall communication clarity for all team members. Developing reciprocal accommodation processes. Traditional accommodation processes often position neurodivergent employees as problems to be solved rather than valuable contributors with different needs. Leading organizations have redesigned accommodation processes to emphasize reciprocity, recognizing that environments, not individuals, need adaptation. JP Morgan Chase's Autism at Work program includes a dedicated accommodation specialist who serves as a bridge between neurodivergent employees and their teams. This specialist facilitates a collaborative process that identifies environmental barriers and develops solutions that benefit the whole team. Austin and Pisano. 2017. Effective approaches include proactive accommodation planning, front-loading accommodation conversations rather than waiting for issues to arise, barrier removal mindset, framing accommodations as removing environmental barriers rather than addressing individual deficits, centralized accommodation funding, organizational level funding for accommodations rather than departmental budgets, accommodation champions, trained facilitators who support the accommodation process, solution libraries. Documented accommodation solutions that can be shared across teams. Research by Doyle and McDowell, 2022, indicates that organizations with proactive, reciprocal accommodation processes report higher neurodivergent employee retention and engagement while also developing innovative workplace practices that benefit broader populations. Building long-term neuroinclusion capability. Developing organizational neurodiversity intelligence. Sustainable neuroinclusion requires developing organization-wide capabilities to understand and respond to neurocognitive diversity. This goes beyond awareness training to build deeper neurodiversity intelligence throughout the organization. Effective neuroinclusion is not just the responsibility of HR or diversity teams but requires distributed capability across the organization. Research by Cooper et al. 2018 demonstrates that organizations with distributed neurodiversity expertise respond more effectively to accommodation needs and create more consistently inclusive environments. Key components of neurodiversity intelligence include understanding how neurodivergent conditions manifest in workplace contexts, recognizing the impact of environment on performance, identifying and challenging ableist assumptions, and developing situation-specific response strategies. Evolving from programs to systems thinking. Many organizations begin their neuroinclusion journey with standalone programs or initiatives. Sustainable impact, however, requires shifting toward systems thinking that considers how organizational elements interact to enable or constrain neuroinclusion. Austin and Pisano, 2017, document how SAP's neuroinclusion approach evolved from a specialized hiring program to a comprehensive organizational strategy addressing multiple systems including recruitment, physical environment, management practices, and career development. This systems approach allowed the company to identify interconnected barriers and develop integrated solutions. Research by Anabai and Locke, 2019, indicates that organizations taking systemic approaches to neuroinclusion achieve more sustainable outcomes than those implementing isolated programs, as they address root causes rather than symptoms of exclusion. Measuring impact through participatory evaluation. Traditional diversity metrics often fail to capture the nuanced impacts of neuroinclusion initiatives. Leading organizations are developing participatory evaluation frameworks that center neurodivergent experiences while also measuring organizational outcomes. Kreminska et al. 2019 recommend using mixed method evaluation approaches that combine quantitative measures, hiring, retention, advancement statistics, with qualitative assessments of neurodivergent employee experiences. This approach ensures that metrics reflect what matters to neurodivergent employees rather than just what is convenient to measure. Research by Bernstein et al. 2020 demonstrates that organizations using participatory evaluation methods identify subtler impacts of neuroinclusion initiatives, leading to more effective program refinement and stronger long-term outcomes. Conclusion: effective neuroinclusion requires moving beyond token initiatives toward fundamental organizational redesign that recognizes neurodiversity as a valuable source of organizational strength. HR professionals are uniquely positioned to facilitate this transformation by embracing co-design methodologies that center neurodivergent experiences and expertise. The evidence presented in this article demonstrates that organizations implementing comprehensive, co-designed neuroinclusion strategies realize significant benefits: enhanced innovation, improved talent outcomes, reduced legal risk, and strengthened organizational capabilities. These benefits extend beyond neurodivergent employees to create more flexible, humane workplaces for all. As organizations navigate increasingly complex business environments requiring diverse cognitive approaches, neuroinclusion becomes not just a moral imperative but a strategic necessity. By applying the participatory design principles and evidence-based practices outlined in this article, HR leaders can transform neuronormative organizational cultures into inclusive environments where diverse cognitive styles are recognized as essential to organizational success.